Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking responsibility for those in your charge. The moment a leader silences their ego is the moment their team's true strength emerges. Listening isn't weakness. It's the most powerful weapon in a leader's arsenal. When we think of leadership, our minds often conjure images of strength, authority, decisiveness, and power. Yet, beneath the surface of all the great leaders throughout history lies an often overlooked quality that shapes not just their impact, but the depth of their influence: humility. Humility is not the absence of strength. It is the intelligent use of strength. It is not weakness, nor is it passivity. Humility is the recognition that leadership is not about elevating oneself above others, but about lifting others higher, creating a field of trust, respect, and unity that allows a team to flourish. Retired Navy SEAL Jocko Willink has lived this truth on the battlefield and in boardrooms. For him, humility was not a philosophical idea, but a matter of life and death. On missions where the smallest lapse in judgment could cost lives, arrogance was a liability. A leader who believed they knew everything, who silenced feedback, or who placed ego above mission would inevitably create chaos. In high-stakes environments, humility became a strength that allowed teams to adapt, learn, and execute under pressure. But what does that mean for us in our lives, in our workplaces, in our homes? It means that humility is not just a quality reserved for the military elite. It is the essence of leading in any human endeavor. To understand humility as strength, you must first understand ego as weakness. Ego blinds us. It distorts reality. It tells us we are more capable than we are, that others have less to offer, that we alone carry the burden of wisdom. The ego builds walls around us, separating us from feedback, insights, and connection. When ego leads, teams fracture, trust erodes, and collaboration dissolves. But humility opens the door to learning. It allows a leader to admit mistakes quickly, to listen to voices that might otherwise be ignored, and to recognize that leadership is not about knowing more than everyone else. It is about seeing more clearly from multiple perspectives. Imagine a leader entering a room. Their posture is calm, their energy grounded, their presence open. They do not speak to dominate, but to engage. They ask questions. They listen with intent. They acknowledge the input of their team, not out of obligation, but because they understand that every person brings something valuable. The leader is not diminished by this. In fact, they are amplified. Their humility does not reduce their authority. It increases it, because their people sense they are being led by someone who values truth over ego, growth over pride. This is the paradox of humility. The more humble a leader is, the stronger their influence becomes. People naturally rally behind leaders who do not need constant validation. Teams respect leaders who can say, "I was wrong, let's adjust." There is power in that vulnerability because it signals security. It communicates that the mission is greater than the self. When a leader lays down their ego, it creates space for others to rise, and in that space, the collective intelligence of the team begins to shine. In the SEAL teams, as Jocko recalls, the most dangerous leaders were the arrogant ones, the ones who thought they had it all figured out. They made reckless decisions. They dismissed warnings. They created environments of fear where subordinates were reluctant to speak up. Contrast that with humble leaders who drew strength from their teams. They encouraged open communication. They wanted to hear the bad news early, so problems could be solved before they became catastrophic. This kind of leadership built teams that could adapt and overcome even the most chaotic and uncertain conditions. Think about your own life for a moment. Where has ego led you into conflict, into stubbornness, into missed opportunities for growth? And where has humility opened doors, allowed you to learn, created bridges where walls once stood? Humility is not about thinking less of yourself. It is about thinking of yourself less. It is about shifting the focus from how do I look to how do we succeed, from how can I be right to how can we move forward together. Humility is also deeply connected to resilience. A humble leader is not devastated by failure because failure is not a blow to their identity. It is simply information. It is feedback. It is part of the process of growth. Ego crumbles in the face of failure because ego cannot accept being wrong. Humility absorbs the lessons of failure and transforms them into wisdom. This ability to recover, to learn, and to adjust makes humble leaders unshakable. Their strength lies not in pretending to be invulnerable, but in embracing their humanity and using it as a bridge to others. We live in a world that often confuses loudness with authority, arrogance with confidence, and domination with leadership. But true leadership is quieter, steadier, deeper. It is not the roar of the lion, but the rootedness of the oak tree. It is the kind of presence that calms chaos rather than fuels it. Humility radiates a frequency that others can feel. It tells the team, I am here with you, not above you. I am here to serve, not to be served. I am here to guide, but I am also here to learn. That frequency creates safety, and safety allows creativity, collaboration, and trust to emerge. Even neuroscience reveals that humility shifts how we interact with the world. When we let go of ego, we open the mind to new possibilities. We move from rigid patterns of control to flexible states of curiosity. We become attuned to others, capable of seeing beyond our narrow perspective. This shift doesn't just change the team, it changes the leader. It rewires the very way we perceive challenges, opportunities, and relationships. So humility is not weakness. Humility is the highest expression of strength because it requires the courage to let go of control, the discipline to silence the ego, and the wisdom to know that leadership is never about the leader alone. It is about creating the conditions in which others can thrive. It is about stepping into a role that serves the greater whole, even when it requires sacrifice. The humble leader does not shine by being the brightest star, but by creating a sky in which everyone's light can be seen more clearly. There is a certain clarity that emerges when one fully understands what it means to take ownership. It is the realization that nothing changes until you decide to claim it, that the direction of a team, a mission, or even your own life depends on your willingness to accept responsibility for every outcome, whether good or bad. This principle, which retired Navy SEAL Jocko Willink calls extreme ownership, is not merely a leadership strategy. It is a state of being, a radical shift in how one perceives control, accountability, and the flow of cause and effect. To live in alignment with extreme ownership is to step into a field where excuses dissolve, blame becomes irrelevant, and responsibility becomes the very foundation of progress. In the high-stakes world of combat, ownership is non-negotiable. When bullets are flying and chaos erupts, there is no time for finger pointing or excuses. If a mission fails, it is not because the enemy was too strong or because luck was absent. It is because somewhere, somehow, the leadership failed. This might sound harsh, but in that mindset lies the key to constant improvement. By claiming responsibility, leaders open the possibility of change. If it is always someone else's fault, then nothing can be corrected. But if the leader owns it all, then solutions become visible, mistakes transform into lessons, and the team grows stronger with each challenge. Ownership demands humility. It requires the leader to look within before looking outward, to ask not who caused this, but what could I have done differently? That simple reframe is transformative. It shifts the energy of a team. When the leader accepts responsibility, it removes fear. People no longer worry about blame being cast upon them. Instead, they become more willing to take risks, to innovate, to act with initiative. They know that if mistakes occur, the leader will shoulder the burden, and together they will find a better way forward. This creates a climate of trust, where accountability is not punishment, but a path to mastery. Imagine a leader standing before their team after a setback. Instead of pointing fingers or searching for scapegoats, they speak with calm authority. "This was my fault. I should have prepared us better. I should have anticipated the obstacles. I will learn, I will adjust, and I will make sure we improve from this point forward." In that moment, the team feels the weight of integrity. They feel the leader's willingness to bear the burden, and in turn, they are inspired to carry their share with greater dedication. Extreme ownership is contagious. It spreads through the team, creating a culture where everyone begins to take responsibility, not just for their own role, but for the success of the whole mission. Responsibility at this level requires discipline. It requires stripping away the ego's need to protect itself with excuses. It requires the ability to see clearly that every outcome is linked to leadership decisions, preparation, communication, and execution. Discipline builds the muscle of ownership because it keeps the leader anchored in the truth rather than the comfort of denial. In moments where it is tempting to deflect blame, discipline reminds the leader that growth only occurs when responsibility is accepted fully. Extreme ownership also reshapes the way one views success. A leader who owns everything does not celebrate victories alone. They recognize that success is never an individual achievement. It is the culmination of the team's effort, and therefore the credit belongs to everyone. Just as the leader claims failure as their own, they distribute success among the team. This balance creates loyalty. It deepens commitment. It makes every member of the team feel valued, seen, and vital to the mission. In our own lives, we often shy away from ownership because it forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. It is easier to blame circumstances, other people, or external forces. But the path of growth demands more. If a project at work fails, it is not because colleagues did not do their part. It is because we did not lead effectively. If a relationship deteriorates, it is not solely because the other person changed. It is because we did not recognize the signals, did not adapt, did not step into the responsibility of nurturing connection. This way of thinking is not self-condemnation. It is empowerment. It means that at any point we hold the power to shift outcomes, to correct course, and to influence the future. When leaders embrace ownership, their teams mirror that behavior. Instead of saying, "That wasn't my fault," team members begin to ask, "What could I have done better?" Instead of hiding mistakes, they bring them forward quickly, knowing that solving problems is more important than preserving pride. This creates a team that is agile, resilient, and united, and it all begins with the leader's willingness to model responsibility without hesitation. Jocko often reminds us that there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. It is a statement that cuts deep because it removes the possibility of hiding behind excuses. If a team is underperforming, it is not because the members are incapable. It is because the leadership has failed to inspire, direct, and empower them. Ownership means accepting this truth, not as a condemnation, but as a call to rise. When leaders live by this principle, they unlock the full potential of those around them. They stop reacting to circumstances and begin creating them. Extreme ownership is also a form of service. By taking responsibility, leaders protect their teams from unnecessary burden. They absorb the weight of failure so their people can focus on learning and improving. They lead from the front, showing through action that accountability is not something to fear but something to embrace. This service-oriented mindset deepens bonds and inspires loyalty because people naturally follow those who protect and elevate them. At its core, Extreme ownership is about alignment. It aligns the leader with reality, stripping away illusions. It aligns the team with a culture of accountability, removing fear and blame. And it aligns every member of the group with the mission, ensuring that energy flows towards solutions rather than excuses. In that alignment, progress becomes inevitable, growth becomes natural, and success becomes sustainable. Leadership is often imagined as speaking with authority, giving direction, and setting a vision that others follow. Yet, one of the most profound and transformative qualities of a leader has nothing to do with words spoken, but with the ability to listen and to be fully present. True listening is not passive. It is an active engagement that requires humility, patience, and awareness. Presence is not simply being physically in the room, but energetically attuned, grounded, and attentive in a way that communicates to others that they are valued and understood. Together, listening and presence form the invisible foundation of trust, without which no team can function at its highest potential. Jocko Willink's experience in the Navy SEALs provides living proof of this principle. In environments where lives were on the line, communication was not a luxury. It was a necessity. Leaders who failed to listen, who dismissed the concerns or observations of their team, often missed crucial information that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. In contrast, leaders who listened with complete presence created an environment where team members felt safe to speak up, share insights, and raise red flags before small issues escalated into major problems. This was not a matter of politeness. It was a matter of survival. Listening, when practiced at its highest level, is a discipline. It is the act of setting aside the chatter of the mind, silencing the inner need to respond or defend, and instead absorbing not only the words being spoken, but the emotions, the intent, and the unspoken truths beneath them. Too often, leaders hear only fragments because they are too focused on formulating their reply or asserting their viewpoint. But when a leader listens without agenda, the team feels it. They sense the openness, the willingness to receive, and that sense of being heard ignites loyalty. People will go to extraordinary lengths for a leader who makes them feel seen and valued. Presence deepens this effect. Presence is more than listening. It is a state of being where attention is undivided. In a world of constant distraction, presence is rare and therefore powerful. When a leader is present, they communicate through their silence, their eye contact, their posture, and their energy that nothing else is more important than this moment and this person. That level of focus has a profound psychological impact. It communicates respect, it builds trust, and it inspires others to bring their best forward. A present leader becomes a stabilizing force, an anchor that steadies the team even in the most turbulent situation. There is a subtlety here that cannot be overlooked. Listening and presence are not simply about gathering information. They are about connection. A leader who listens well learns not only the tactical concerns of the team, but also their emotional landscape. They understand when someone is carrying stress, when someone doubts themselves, when someone has an idea but hesitates to share it. By tuning in with presence, the leader is able to draw out what might otherwise remain hidden. That ability to uncover the unspoken strengthens the fabric of the team, weaving together trust, empathy, and collaboration. Consider the difference between a leader who is distracted, glancing at their phone or rushing through a conversation, and one who leans in, maintains eye contact, and asks thoughtful questions. The former communicates that people are secondary to tasks. The latter communicates that people are the mission itself. Over time, those small moments of presence compound into a culture. In one culture, people withdraw, hold back ideas, and keep their concerns to themselves. In the other, people contribute, innovate, and communicate openly. The difference in performance between these two environments is immense, and it begins with something as simple yet profound as listening with presence. Listening also builds clarity. Teams operate in complex and often chaotic environments. Misunderstandings, assumptions, and incomplete information can lead to breakdowns, but when leaders listen fully, they clarify what is really happening. They cut through the noise. They ensure that every voice has the chance to be expressed, and in doing so, they piece together a more accurate picture of reality. This clarity allows better decisions, faster responses, and stronger execution. The cost of not listening is confusion. The reward of listening is alignment. There is also an empowering aspect to listening. When a leader listens deeply, they signal that the team's ideas matter. They create an atmosphere where individuals feel ownership over the mission. This sense of ownership inspires people to step up, to contribute not because they have to, but because they want to. The team becomes more than a collection of individuals following orders. It becomes a network of engaged minds united by trust and shared responsibility. And it all begins with a leader who has the humility to listen rather than dominate. Presence, on the other hand, extends beyond conversation. It is how a leader shows up every day. It is in the way they walk into a room, the way they conduct themselves under stress, the way they hold their energy in silence. A leader who is distracted, frazzled, or overwhelmed spreads that energy to the team. A leader who is present, calm, and grounded creates stability even in uncertainty. Presence is contagious. It influences the emotional state of the team more than any words could. It creates a rhythm that others unconsciously attune to, shaping the culture in ways that are subtle but profound. The combination of listening and presence has the power to unlock deeper levels of performance. It fosters psychological safety, where team members are willing to voice concerns and take risks. It nurtures creativity because people feel safe enough to share unconventional ideas. It strengthens bonds because people feel valued not for their titles but for their humanity. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds the team that leadership is not about one person commanding others, but about all members of the team being fully seen, fully heard, and fully engaged in the mission together. In this sense, listening and presence are not soft skills. They are core leadership disciplines. They require intentional practice, self-awareness, and the courage to set aside ego in favor of connection. They demand that leaders value the process of communication as much as the outcome of execution. When practiced consistently, they transform the relationship between leader and team, turning it into a dynamic of mutual respect, trust, and empowerment. At the heart of effective leadership lies a paradox. A leader must guide, yet not control. They must hold authority, yet willingly distribute it. They must be strong enough to lead from the front, yet humble enough to step back and let others take charge. This paradox is resolved in the principle of decentralized command, a philosophy that Jocko Willink lived by as a Navy SEAL and now teaches to leaders in every field. Decentralized command is the art of empowering others to lead, to make decisions, and to take ownership of the mission at every level. It transforms a group of individuals into a self-sustaining, adaptable, and resilient team that can thrive in the most complex and uncertain environments. In the chaos of combat, one leader cannot control everything. Situations shift in seconds, communication lines break, and opportunities vanish if delayed by hesitation. If all authority is concentrated in one person, the team becomes brittle, too slow to react, too dependent on a single mind. But when leadership is distributed, when every member understands the mission and has the freedom to act within that framework, the team becomes fluid, responsive, and nearly unstoppable. This is not theoretical, it is practical survival. A centralized leader creates vulnerability, but a decentralized team creates strength. At its core, decentralized command begins with trust. A leader must trust their people enough to give them responsibility. This is not blind trust. It is cultivated through training, communication, and shared purpose. The leader ensures that everyone understands not just what the mission is, but why it matters. With that clarity, each person gains the confidence to make decisions aligned with a greater goal, even in the absence of direct orders. This is how small units operate effectively in unpredictable environments, and it is equally how businesses, families, and organizations succeed in the complexities of modern life. Empowerment does not mean abdication. A leader cannot simply step aside and hope for the best. It requires intentional guidance, a careful balance between oversight and autonomy. The leader sets the standard, communicates the priorities, and ensures alignment. Then, they step back enough to allow others the freedom to execute. This balance is delicate but transformative. Too much control stifles initiative, while too little guidance leads to chaos. Decentralized command exists in the harmony between direction and trust, creating a rhythm where leadership flows through the entire team. The beauty of decentralized command is that it multiplies leadership. Instead of one leader carrying the weight of responsibility, every member becomes a leader in their own sphere. This distribution of authority fosters ownership. When people feel trusted, they step into greater responsibility with pride and dedication. They no longer act out of obligation alone. They act out of commitment because they feel that the success of the mission truly depends on them. This sense of ownership is contagious, spreading through the team until everyone operates with the mindset of a leader, regardless of their title. Consider the difference between a team where decisions bottleneck at the top and one where decisions are made at every level. In the first, innovation slows, opportunities are missed, and the burden of responsibility crushes the leader. In the second, creativity flourishes, decisions happen faster, and the leader is free to focus on strategy rather than micromanagement. The second team is stronger, more agile, and more resilient, and it all comes down to the willingness of the leader to share power rather than hoard it. Decentralized command also builds resilience in the face of adversity. When only one person leads, the entire system collapses if that person falters. But when leadership is spread, the team can withstand challenges without losing direction. If one member falls, another steps up. If one decision is wrong, another can quickly correct it. This adaptability is a direct result of empowering others. The team becomes less dependent on a single leader and more dependent on the collective strength of many leaders acting in unity. This principle applies not only in combat but in every domain of life. In organizations, decentralized command means empowering employees to solve problems without waiting for endless approvals. In families, it means raising children to make thoughtful decisions rather than dictating every move. In communities, it means giving individuals the tools and trust to contribute to the collective good rather than concentrating power in the hands of a few. In every case, the outcome is the same: stronger, more capable, more engaged people who rise to challenges because they know they are trusted. But empowering others requires the leader to set aside ego. Many leaders fear that by giving away authority, they will lose control or diminish their importance. Yet the opposite is true. A leader who empowers others becomes more respected, not less. Their influence grows because people sense their willingness to serve the mission above themselves. Their legacy expands because they have cultivated other leaders who carry the mission forward long after the original leader has stepped aside. Ego isolates, but humility multiplies. The practice of decentralized command begins with communication. Every member of the team must understand the mission clearly. not just in terms of instructions, but in terms of intent. When people understand why they are doing something, they can adapt their actions intelligently when conditions change. Without that understanding, they become dependent on constant direction, unable to move without approval. A leader who communicates intent creates independent thinkers, and independent thinkers form the backbone of a resilient team. Decentralized command also requires patience. People will make mistakes when they are first empowered. They will stumble, they will misjudge, they will fall short. But those moments are not failures. They are the raw material of growth. A wise leader uses those moments as teaching opportunities, helping their people refine judgment and build confidence. Over time, those small lessons compound into a team that can act decisively, even under immense pressure, because they have been trusted to grow into leadership themselves. Ultimately, decentralized command is not about relinquishing leadership, but about expanding it. It is about recognizing that the true measure of a leader is not how much control they hold, but how many leaders they create. It is about building a team that can outthink, outmaneuver, and outperform precisely because authority is not concentrated but shared. In this way, the leader does not stand above the team but within it, a catalyst that enables everyone to rise together. Discipline, ego, and service are three forces that shape every leader, every team, and every mission. They are interconnected in ways that can either elevate a group to greatness or drag it into dysfunction. Discipline provides structure, consistency, and clarity of action. Ego, when left unchecked, becomes a destructive force that blinds leaders and fractures teams. Service, on the other hand, transcends both, guiding the leader to place the mission and the team above the self. To understand leadership at its highest level is to understand how discipline tempers the self, how ego must be mastered, and how service creates the foundation for trust and loyalty. Discipline is often misunderstood as rigidity, as a mechanical enforcement of rules that suffocates freedom. But true discipline is not about control, it is about liberation. It is the ability to stay aligned with principles, to remain consistent in execution, and to resist the distractions that pull one away from purpose. In the Navy SEALs, discipline is not negotiable. Every action, every movement, every plan must be executed with precision because lives depend on it. Yet this same discipline, when applied to leadership outside the battlefield, creates reliability and stability. A disciplined leader follows through on commitments, communicates with clarity, and maintains consistency that the team can depend upon. That consistency becomes a source of safety, and safety becomes the soil where growth and innovation can flourish. But discipline does more than build trust. It strengthens the leader from within. A disciplined mind does not fall prey to impulsive reactions. A disciplined body can withstand stress and fatigue. A disciplined spirit remains centered even in chaos. This discipline allows leaders to model the very behavior they expect from others. When team members see their leader living by standards, they are inspired to hold themselves to those same standards. Discipline is contagious. It spreads through the team not through words alone, but through example. The leader does not have to demand discipline. They embody it, and the team rises to meet that example. Ego, however, is the constant threat that undermines discipline. Ego is the voice that whispers, "I know better, I don't need to prepare, I don't need feedback." Ego resists accountability. It inflates victories into personal triumphs and shifts blame for failures onto others. In leadership, unchecked ego creates fear, silences communication, and isolates the leader from reality. Jocko Willink has often said that ego is the enemy because it blinds leaders to the truth. A leader consumed by ego cannot listen, cannot learn, and cannot grow. They see leadership as a stage for personal validation rather than a responsibility to the mission and the people they serve. The tragedy of ego-driven leadership is that it may produce short-term results, but always at the cost of long-term trust. Teams may obey an egotistical leader out of fear, but they will never give their hearts. They may comply, but they will never commit. The moment pressure increases or adversity strikes, the cracks created by ego split wide open, and the team begins to collapse. Ego divides, while humility unites, and it is only through discipline that a leader can keep ego in check, constantly monitoring the self, questioning motives, and redirecting focus back to the mission. Service is the higher ground that transcends both discipline and ego. To serve is to lead not from the hunger for recognition, but from the commitment to elevate others. Service is the antidote to ego because it shifts the center of gravity away from the self and onto the team. It is the recognition that leadership is not about power but about responsibility, not about being served but about serving. A leader who serves sacrifices comfort for the growth of their people, absorbs blame to protect their team, and shares credit to honor collective effort. This service-oriented mindset transforms the dynamic of leadership. When people feel that their leader is truly serving them, they respond with loyalty that cannot be forced. They go beyond obligation because they know their leader would do the same for them. Service inspires reciprocity. It creates a bond of trust so strong that in the heat of battle, or in the challenges of business and life, individuals push beyond their limits, not for personal glory, but for the team and for the leader who has consistently put them first. Discipline, ego, and service interact constantly in the reality of leadership. Discipline keeps ego in check, ensuring the leader remains grounded and consistent. Service redirects attention outward, channeling discipline into action that uplifts others rather than inflating the self. Together, they form a cycle. Discipline strengthens humility, humility fuels service, and service deepens discipline. When this cycle is intact, leadership becomes not a burden but a calling, an opportunity to channel strength into a greater purpose. Consider the power of a leader who embodies these three forces in balance. Their discipline allows them to remain calm under pressure, modeling stability for the team. Their mastery over ego allows them to admit mistakes, to learn from failures, and to adapt quickly without fear of appearing weak. Their commitment to service creates an atmosphere where every team member feels valued, respected, and empowered. This combination produces not just results, but transformation. It creates teams that do not just perform but thrive, teams that do not just achieve goals but grow stronger through the process. Discipline without service becomes cold and authoritarian. Service without discipline becomes inconsistent and ineffective. And leadership with ego at its center becomes fragile and destructive. But when discipline and service unite, when ego is subordinated to the mission and the team, leadership takes on its highest form. It becomes less about the individual and more about creating a collective force that can withstand adversity, adapt to change, and pursue goals with unwavering focus. In the end, leadership is not about being perfect. It is about being disciplined enough to stay aligned with values, humble enough to master the ego, and devoted enough to serve others before oneself. It is about recognizing that true strength is not in how loudly one commands, but in how deeply one inspires, not in how much authority one holds, but in how much one gives, not in what one achieves alone, but in what one empowers others to achieve together. When we weave together humility, ownership, listening, empowerment, discipline, and service, a powerful truth about leadership emerges. Leadership is not a title, nor is it the ability to exert authority over others. It is the conscious act of guiding people toward a shared vision while rising above the limitations of ego. Jocko Willink's lessons remind us that the best leaders are not those who demand obedience, but those who earn trust. They are not the ones who strive to be the loudest in the room, but the ones who listen most deeply. They are not the ones who carry the mission on their shoulders alone, but the ones who empower others to lead beside them. Humility reveals that strength lies in connection, not in dominance. Extreme ownership transforms blame into responsibility and opens the door to continuous growth. The power of listening and presence builds trust and psychological safety, turning individuals into a united force. Decentralized command empowers every member of the team to rise as a leader, multiplying strength across the group. Discipline keeps the leader grounded, ego restrained, and service at the center, creating a foundation that inspires loyalty and commitment. These principles are not just strategies for the battlefield or the boardroom. They are principles for life. They remind us that leadership is not about being served, but about serving. It is not about elevating oneself, but about lifting others higher. It is about creating the conditions in which people can grow, thrive, and contribute their fullest potential to a mission greater than themselves. The most enduring leaders understand that when they lead with humility, accountability, presence, empowerment, discipline, and service, they do not just build better teams. They build better people, and through them, a better world.